All right, so as I was mentioning earlier, the rest of the semester will consist of working on our cabin, and all of our exercises that we work on over the next few weeks will work up towards what our, Brian, turn that off for now. The rest of our exercises will lead up to what our submissions will be for the assignments. Okay, so for example, assignment number 5, which you see on Canvas right now, will be titled AutoCAD Floor Plans and Elevations. Well, we're also on exercise 21. So exercise 21, 22, and 23 will all basically be what assignment 5 consists of, okay? So you won't actually have a bunch of exercises and then you'll have to draw a bunch of floor plans and elevations for a single assignment. So we'll actually work our way up to obtaining all of the content for the assignments, okay? So we'll work on them all together in the class, and that's basically how the rest of the semester will conclude, okay? So we'll be in AutoCAD for about another 2 weeks or so. We'll work on floor plans for our cabin today and Monday. Then next Wednesday we will work on elevations, and I believe the following week we'll actually start SketchUp, and then we'll finish the last few weeks of the semester working on SketchUp and Photoshop. We'll actually jump back into Photoshop for the last couple weeks, and then we'll also include a portfolio review day in that period of time as well. So that's where we are. So today we're going to go ahead and kick off our Yosemite cabin. We're going to start that out by doing a little brief introduction to the site. If you go on Canvas and click on exercise 21, you will see that there is a download for a KMZ file. That KMZ file is a Google Earth file. All right, so if you click on that, that will actually take you to where our site is. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an explanation to where exactly we're building our cabin. All right, so let me go to that file. So building site A105, we're gonna go ahead and click on that, and we'll do a little Google Earth tour of the Yosemite Valley. How many people here have been to Yosemite? Just curious. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow, actually more than most. I think last semester I don't think I had a single person. I was shocked. But if you haven't been there, it's honestly one of the most amazing places in the world. I haven't been there myself in probably about 4 or 5 years, but I used to go up there all the time. I've hiked Half Dome a couple times. If you haven't done that either, it's absolutely spectacular. But as soon as you open up this Google Earth file, you'll see here that it says building site right here with the little yellow pin. That's going to give you kind of an idea of what the terrain is like. That would help. Projector. All right, we'll pause for about 10 seconds. But you'll see that as soon as the projector turns on, that our site is located amongst a very large grouping of trees. It's also located right beside a river. All right, and this should pop up in just a second. Okay, there we go. So you can see here as I zoom out, and let me remember how to work Google Earth, you could see here kind of where our site kind of lies, okay? So there's this big giant kind of crevasse in between all of these mountains right here, and if you go right into the very middle of it, you'll see a little area called Happy Isles, okay? Happy Isles right here, and our site's located just to the right of that, all right? If you zoom out real far, you'll see the river or the stream that runs through here, so running downstream in this direction. And then you got a whole lot of trees, and there's a bunch of little cabins, and there's a little road that actually runs right through here as well. I think I even had a student a couple semesters ago even drive up there to see the site. If you want to do that, that's great. You won't regret it, that's for sure. But if you actually, when you're on Google Earth, you can go through and you can click on all these little photos, and you'll actually get photos that people have actually taken of the site, all right? Just understanding the site will just kind of give you an idea of maybe how you start to design your cabin. This is the fun part of the semester because we're actually getting to a point where we're going to be spending time actually being, pretty creative and actually designing something. and having a really nice end product. Most of my students end up having a really nice piece of their portfolio that they can use for school, and they end up using it for a while. A lot of the times your portfolio stuff that you have right now ends up getting thrown away in a couple years because everything you've created at that point is now better than everything you've created now. This ends up being something that really sticks in that portfolio because I end up getting a lot of actually really nice results from these cabins. So it's fun to see what everybody comes up with. I encourage you to do whatever comes to your mind. All right, I'm here to help you do that. For those that aren't, in the design field or have never worked in an architect's office, that's not a problem at all. That's not really the focus of this. But I am here to help you if you need some insight on how things are built or what things would actually look like. I will come around today and actually talk to everyone about what they're kind of thinking for their cabin, and if I need to, I'll kind of give you the kickstart on getting that design started. I'd also highly encourage you to probably do a little sketching first. We talked about this a little earlier in the semester. I wouldn't dive right into AutoCAD prior to knowing what you want. Okay, I promise you that if you just pull out a pen and a piece of paper and you sketch for maybe half an hour or an hour to get some ideas of how something might be laid out, you'll be far more successful, and you'll actually do the AutoCAD portion a lot quicker because you're not sitting there trying to design with these very rigid, AutoCAD lines. So pull out some paper, sketch some ideas real quick. I can help you sketch some ideas as well. And then once you like what you see on your paper, then start to draw it on AutoCAD. All right. So let's finish our little tour here. You can see that we're located between two very large steep mountains. So you're gonna have really nice sunlight probably at about high noon, 1 o'clock. Other than that, you'll probably be in shadow a lot of the day. Okay, we'll go over what our actual program is in a second. It's on the assignment 10, or it's actually on the exercise 21 handout prompt. But I would encourage you to go through here, look at some of the pictures, kind of get an idea of what the terrain's like, see where the different open spots are. It's not super critical to know exactly where your site's going to be. It's just more of kind of understanding what's around you and just having a sense of, I'm building in Yosemite between, some trees, and hopefully that helps you influence what your actual cabin looks like. All right. The main point is we're not designing on a, flat, Walnut Creek site. Okay. So, and this will also influence all your renderings and all of the future tasks that we have ahead of us. So if you're not familiar with Yosemite here, this is Half Dome. I believe the main kind of downtown Yosemite area is right around here. It's been a while since I've been up there. I'm sure someone could actually probably navigate me a little bit better. Let's see, I'm trying to navigate myself in terms of where the hike is for Half Dome. So you start about basically right in here, and the hike to Half Dome goes up here. You end up going around here, up here to Emerald Pool, and then we come around. There's another big waterfall right in here. You end up hiking up through here, around here, all the way up around over here, up this crest, and you end up coming back through here, and then you start to walk right up the side of this cliff, and that's how you get up to Half Dome. And I've actually stood right there on the tip of that rock. Yeah, it's crazy. Instant vertigo. I laid on my stomach and you peer down and it's like 5,000 feet, just nothing. It's crazy. I got dizzy like the second I did it. But it's just kind of fun to show you guys some of these photos. I'll answer your question in just a sec. Let's see. So there's a picture of the actual rock. It's a lot harder to climb it these days. That's the look going down. But it's absolutely breathtaking. When you get up there, you can see literally as far as you can physically see before the earth starts to turn, and you can't see any further. But you really get the sense of, this was probably all underwater at some point, and you can see how all that worked. You can see where all the glaciers started to come through the area. I'm trying to find a picture of the chains or the cables.
Oh, the ones you have to pull yourself up?
Yeah, that's actually a picture of the cables. When I did it, there was like 500 people going up it. Now you actually have to get a permit. There's hardly anybody up there because like 10 people will die on it every year. It was kind of crazy. I remember actually going up it and people would be going down it, not even using the cables, just kind of puffing it down. And I'm like, you're walking up on the side of a cliff that's literally like this. It's insane, but I would highly encourage you to go up there someday and go for a really good hike. So it's only like 22 miles. You can do it in one day. So that's our site. All right, so have a little look at that. Look at the different pictures. Get to know where you're going to be building. So let's talk a little bit of, actually, you had something you want to say. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned it was on the hike up to Halston, so I was wondering what exactly are we looking at for, like, traffic coming near our building?
There's really not any traffic. There is a road that goes right through here. You can drive by the site, but if you look at some of the pictures, it basically looks like most other Yosemite campgrounds. There's a river off to the side, so you can have a nice big glass window that overlooks the river. So there are some very nice scenic aspects of the site. Okay, so something to think about. So let's talk about the program real quick. All right, so if you click on exercise 21, we've already gone through the topography aspect. All right, we've talked about what we're going to be doing for the plan. Oh, let's actually go to assignment 5. I think assignment 5 will show all of our, yeah, there we go. Okay, so introduction. This will be your first architectural design assignment for this course. You have been selected to be the architect for a small 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom cabin. The cabin will be located in Happy Isles, as we've talked about, section of Yosemite. You will need to create an AutoCAD floor plan and 4 elevations of this cabin to highlight your design decisions and showcase your cabin to your client. So the program. Your clients are a husband and wife with no children. They've requested the following for their cabin. You will need to design something with 2 bedrooms, okay, and 1 bathroom, all right? That in total right there is about 400 square feet, okay? I'm just kind of giving you some estimates in terms of about how large some of these spaces are. This is not necessarily meant to be the most, grand cabin you could possibly imagine, but you know what? Have some fun with it. Sometimes they get, typical, just normal looking cabins. Sometimes they get glass boxes. I get a wide variety of what the cabin might look like. So I don't care what it looks like. It can be whatever you want, but this kind of gives you an idea in terms of the size of what it should be. I'd rather you focus more on maybe a smaller, more intimate design that has much nicer maybe details, and that actually allows you to be able to spend time modeling those details when it gets to the point of doing some of the finer portions of the AutoCAD file, and then also the SketchUp model as well. So your cabin should have 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. That's about 400 square feet, a living space with a fireplace and windows that capture the surrounding site. So that living space will be about 200 square feet, a kitchen that is open to the living space, a dining area, and in total, that should be about 1,000 square feet. Okay, I would say at a maximum, don't let that be more than about 1,500 square feet. Okay, so I'll allow some flexibility, but often in times I see people just end up taking on too much. They get excited about it, which is great, but they end up having, biting off a little bit too much than they can chew, and they end up having this massive cabin that they need to model and sketch up. And some people might be able to handle that, but just keep that in mind prior to going into designing this cabin, is that we'll need to model and draw all of it, okay? So do the evaluation of the site, all right? I've also, down here under assignment 5, I've given you just a couple just basic design tips in terms of how thick some of the walls should be. So you had exterior walls, interior walls, how big some of the doors should be as well. Exterior doors should be 3 feet wide, 2 inches thick. Interior doors can be a little bit smaller. All right, door jambs can be 4 inches. So those are the typical questions that I get on how large should these things be. Okay, but I'll come around and I'll make sure that everyone is drawing to scale. Remember that when you're drawing this in AutoCAD, you are drawing this to full scale, how big it actually is. And I have to say this because there's always one person every semester that just starts drawing lines, not even looking at distances. And I think I had someone last year that had a cabin that was like 100,000 square feet because they just started. It looked right when you actually looked at it, but when you actually like measure the distance of the exterior wall, it was like 900 feet. So just keep that in mind.
Scale it?
It's all in fun. No, there was just no scale, but it's it's all good, but just keep that in mind. Okay, so that's going to be that's the little brief intro to your cabin. I've also included a topography file. We won't really use this much right away. This will actually come more into play of when we end up drawing your elevations, but we can also look at that real quick. Maybe I'll actually use it for today's demonstration. So I'm going to open up AutoCAD 2017.
The elevations of exterior elevations.
Correct. We are not drawing. I don't really care about the inside. I mean, we'll end up doing plan views. We're not going to do any interior perspectives or anything like that. But you should have a good sense of how the actual interior works, but no need to make interior elevations. All right, so we're going to open that file. You'll need to download it. I already have it downloaded. All right, so I'm going to go over to topography. All right, and you're going to get something that looks a little bit like this. This is actually the topography of our general site, okay? It's kind of hard to tell where exactly we are. I don't care where you pick, just to kind of give you an understanding. Does everyone know how a topography map works? Okay, if you do, yes. Oh, you're just saying you know how it works. Okay, good. So what all of these lines mean, all of these lines represent 1 foot of grade change. So you can tell from this area up here, which is represented by north, our tall, steep rock walls that we have on the mountains beside us are going to be over here on the right and on the left, okay, or on the east and over here in the west. Downtown Yosemite is in this direction, and then Half Dome Hike is in this direction. The river runs right through this area right up in here. And as I mentioned, each one of these lines represents 1 foot of grade change. So you can see here that it's fairly gradual in this area. And then you can see there, this is where your very steep side of the cliff starts to go straight up, okay? This actual site here is like 1,000 feet by 1,000 feet. So once you actually insert your floor plan into this topography map, it's really only gonna be like that big, okay? So don't be shocked when you actually start to see that. But for now, you're pretty much gonna kind of pick maybe a general area of where that's gonna go. Don't think about it too much. There's not really a science to it, and it's not really the focus of the class, but we'll go ahead and use this file in terms of talking about some new material today, and then we will get going on the cabin. Let me pull up my little list of topics. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about today in terms of new AutoCAD material is the first thing is going to be layers, okay? So for Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, we've had layers in all of the programs that we've worked with thus far this semester. AutoCAD is also, known for its layering system and how it works, okay? If you go up here and you click on the little drop-down menu, you will see, yeah.
I just had a question on what you said the contour line difference was. You said it was
1 foot of grade change between each line. Positive. Okay? So it's 1 foot of grade change. So it's about 25 feet of grade change from one side of the site to the other, and that's about 1,000 feet, I believe the entire square is. Okay, so let's see. We're going to go ahead and talk about layers a little bit. So if you click on the little drop-down menu where it says layers, you will get a little introductory of the layer prompts. Okay, this will be where a majority of your layering information is found. If you click on the little drop-down menu over here to the right, you will see all of the layers that we have for this particular file. Okay, right now you have layer 0. Layer 0 is going to be your default layer that AutoCAD will always give you every time you open up an AutoCAD file. And then you also have topography. Okay, topography is going to be what you see on your screen, okay? And then not for today, but next class we will start to create layers for our floor plans and for our elevations. But today we'll just kind of get a brief understanding of how that layer palette also works, okay? So those are the two layers that we currently have for our site. We will eventually add layers for things like exterior walls, interior walls, cabinetry, furniture. We're going to have a layer basically for every grouping of items within our floor plans. Okay, layers for windows, layers for doors, door swings. You'll have a layer for all of these items, so you can turn them all on and off as you please. Okay, so it works very much just like the layering system we have seen in the other pieces of software. Okay, so let's look at a couple of our other tools here. Let's see. We have. Actually, I'm going to really quickly. I'm going to type in layer. Okay, if you type in layer, you'll get a much larger layer palette. It was actually what I'm a little bit more used to seeing. My computer screen at work looks a little bit different because most people that use AutoCAD kind of customize the user interface as they prefer to work on it, because they know they'll be working on it for long extended periods of time. So pardon me if I can't find things every once in a while. It's just because my AutoCAD's different in my office. But if you type in layer, you'll get the actual layer toolbox that pops up. In my opinion, it's much easier to work with than the little drop-down menu. But the drop-down menu works well if you're just looking to do a quick change. Okay, so if you look at this little button right here, this is going to be the new layer button. So if I click on that, you'll see here that it adds a layer 1. I could add something like exterior walls. Okay, let's see. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger just for this demonstration. Let's look at what else we have for each of these layers. Okay, to the right of where I just added exterior walls, you're going to have this little light bulb. All right, if you click on that little light bulb, that will turn the layer on and off. All right, so if I click on the light bulb right here, it says turn the current layer off. If I say turn current layer off, you'll see that all of my topography just went away. So I think that's pretty clear on how that works. You can also freeze a layer by turning on the sun. All right, if you freeze it, that allows the layer to not be selected, or it can't be moved. Okay, so it's now locked into place. All right, to the right, actually, I take that back. It's not locked into place. But if I click on the little lock button, you'll notice that. Let's move this a little bit now, but I kind of want to see my background. You'll notice that my topography layer is now kind of half-toned. Okay, so it's kind of grayed out. And what that allows this layer to be is now kind of a background layer. Okay, so I can't click on it. I can't do anything with it. All right, notice that if I click on these layers, nothing happens. I can't move them around. Okay, and right now it's just a ghosted layer. All right, so it's good if you wanted to see it in the background, but you don't want to accidentally manipulate it. Let's see what else we got. To the right of that, we have our color. So what color do you want your lines to be? All right, if I double click on that color box, you'll see that I have a lot of different colors that my lines can be. Next class, when we get into a little bit more details about layers, I'll actually talk about what all of the colors mean and how they're associated with various different line weights. So for example, in my office, my thickest line that I would see on my floor plan is always magenta. A little bit less thicker line is going to be blue, and as you move down in the color index right here, they all get thinner and thinner. So, and those that are familiar with reading architectural drawings, those line weights actually have meaning. Okay, things that are line weights that are larger are typically closer to you, or you're cutting through that object in a floor plan. But more on that in the future. I'm only going to work with the main colors that are right here, but some people, mostly civil engineers that I know, will actually use all of these different colors, because they're actually working with hundreds of layers in their layer catalog. All right, so more to come on this layer, or on this later. More to come on this layer. Get it? It's an AutoCAD pun. But more to come on this later. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. All right, I guess you can see how that kind of works. So you can see how here I changed that to magenta, and that's now magenta. So for me, certain colors have certain meanings. And when I see an AutoCAD file before it's been plotted into its PDF form, all of these colors actually have meaning to my eyes and to my brain. So that actually will end up being very important here in the future. To the right of that is going to be the line type. So whether it be a solid line, a dashed line, what have you, you can control that right there. You have line weight, transparency, whether or not it's a printable layer. Okay, we had printable layers, non-printing layers in InDesign and in Illustrator and Photoshop as well. So if you want just like reference lines, for example, you can make those. You can make a layer for reference lines, and you can make that a non-printing layer. That's always an option. Okay, so that's going to be just a little bit about layers. More to come on that soon. And I'll actually talk about what a lot of these buttons here mean once we get more into what we're talking about. Because I'll actually need to have a variety of different layers active to be able to understand that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some new tools. All right, so today you're going to need to use this topography file as kind of the base of your floor plan. Okay, if you want to start a new file as well, that's okay. I don't really care which way you choose it. You can always open up a new file for your floor plan and then insert it into this one later. However you want to do that is perfectly acceptable. All right. So I'm just going to kind of make up a floor plan here off the top of my head as we get started. But last class we talked about lines. We talked about polylines. Okay, polylines being continuous versions of lines. Okay, they're one continuous long segment. Okay. We talked about some different shapes. We talked about arcs. And we talked about 2 or 3 of the basic modify commands. Today we're going to look at probably another 4 or 5. And then I will let you loose to start working on your cabin. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a polyline. I'm going to create a new layer. All right, I'm going to create a new layer for my floor plan. Okay, I'm going to delete exterior walls for now. We'll actually end up creating those next class, but for now, let's just call this floor plan. Okay, and that'll be what we start with today. Next class, we'll actually change the lines to match the layers that they correspond to. And I'm going to go ahead and double click on floor plan, so that becomes my active layer. Okay, so that's now the layer that I am going to be working on. Okay, and if I click on the little drop-down menu here, I can now see that floor plan layer. I can click on that, or I could switch between the different layers that we have. Let's unlock that so that I can, so that we can manipulate our floor plan. Okay, so I'm going to start by typing in PL. Okay, PL is going to be our polyline. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and start to draw the outer extents of our cabin floor plan. And keep in mind, so you want about 1,000 square feet, okay? So I'm just gonna make kind of an arbitrary shape on what that cabin might be. I'm gonna say 20 feet, 20 feet, all right, and we'll say 5 feet, and then I'm gonna say 20 feet again, 5 feet, okay. You can, if you're a little unfamiliar with what I'm doing right now, check out last week's video. Okay, we talk about line work and how to start to establish some of those lines. Okay, so I'm getting the basis of the actual outer cabin. Maybe this is 40 feet. All right, then I go, let's see, that's 20, 20, let's go 30 feet. Okay, so maybe this becomes the outer perimeter of our cabin. Okay, it's just kind of an arbitrary shape, no thought to it whatsoever. But let's start to look at some of these different commands. So one question you're gonna ask yourself is how do I know how big my cabin is right now? You're gonna start to draw lines. Yes, you've taken math classes before. You could calculate area by, breaking the space down into the different rectangles or different shapes that you're creating, and you could calculate the area that way. But let's talk about the area tool. Okay, so under utilities, you'll notice that we have a tool called measure. Okay, you can click on the little ruler tool and you can start to figure out what some of the dimensions are of the particular spaces that you're drawing. Okay, if you go up to utilities and you click on the drop down menu for measure, you can also click on area. Okay, another thing you can also do is just type in area. Okay, so AEREA, space bar, that activates the area command. And what I'll do now is I'll start to trace the outer extents of the cabin. Okay, and notice that my mouse is snapping to all of those different areas. Okay, so I need to snap to those different areas, and as soon as I get a green fill that fills the entire cabin, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, And notice right here it says 1900 feet, okay? So what I've drawn right now is too large. So I need to actually fix this so that it's not quite so big, all right? So maybe this comes up here. Okay, maybe this comes in a little bit more and it does something like that. Okay, so again, I could try that out. Boom, boom. And we should be a lot closer to what we're looking for. So that's about 1,400 square feet. You're starting to get the picture. We're getting closer to what I'd probably want to work with. What I would recommend as you guys start to draw your cabins, and this is kind of my personal design process, don't just pick an arbitrary shape and start to plug in where the spaces are going to belong. Maybe start to think about how the cabin actually flows. Think about it and how the actual spaces are arranged. And then once you get an understanding of how you want those spaces to be arranged, then start to establish what the actual perimeter of the building looks like, okay? So it's very easy to just draw a rectangle or to draw something like I'm drawing right now and start to plug in the spaces. But that's when you start to run into the problems like, okay, my living room works really, really well. My kitchen works really well. Okay, I'm starting to run out of a little bit of room for my bedrooms, and spaces start to get awkward as you get towards the end of plugging in the different programmatic elements, okay? So think about that as you guys start to design those floor plans. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to give my exterior wall a little bit of thickness. So last class we talked about the offset command. So I typed in OFF. All right, there's offset. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. It says to specify the offset distance. My exterior wall is going to be 6 inches. So I'm just going to type in 6 inches, hit enter, and then now it says select object to offset. All right, so I'm going to click on my exterior perimeter wall, and I'm going to move my mouse inwards because that's the direction that I want the line to actually offset. And I'm going to click, and now I have I'm going to hit escape a couple times. Now I have an outer perimeter wall that is 6 inches thick. Okay, so let's look at a couple other tools that we might potentially use to get to this point. So if you are using, say, just the line tool and you're not using the polyline tool yet, you might do something like this. Okay, let's talk about a tool called fillet. Okay, fillet. So fillet's probably one of my most frequently used tools, okay? So let's just say, for example, we have some lines that we're drawing, and we have something like this. So what fillet will do is it will actually connect the two lines at the intersecting point, okay? So it will connect this line, and it will at the points that they converge, okay? What the tool is actually meant to do is actually to provide perfect radiuses to corners. So for example, let's just say you are a civil engineer and you do a lot of curb cuts. You do a lot of streets and you do a lot of parking lots. So let's say you have a street that does this and you want that perfect 3-foot radius around going from corner to corner. Well, instead of trying to kind of guess what that's going to be, this is the perfect tool to actually do that. So what I would do is we'll call this A street right here and we'll call this B street. What you would do is you would type in F. F is the shortcut for fillet, okay? It's also this button right up here in the modify tab under your ribbon, okay? So there's the button, and then the shortcut is F for fillet. Now it says select the first object to fillet. So I'm going to select the first line. Okay, then it says to select the second line, and notice that it's just showing what that's going to look like. I haven't clicked yet, so it's showing me what that is going to look like. I'm going to click again, and it will converge the lines like so. So you can actually see here there is a tiny, tiny little radius. All right, but if you type in F for fillet, and then you'll notice down here in the bottom under your little command bar, it gives you a couple other options that you can pick to use the fillet command. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and click on radius. Okay, it says what do you want that radius to be? So right now by default it's set to a 1/2 inch, which is why you see that tiny, tiny little radius at the very end. If you actually type in 0, it will give you just a perfect 90-degree turn on your walls. Okay, so this works a lot more efficiently than taking your lines and dragging them up and dragging them up. You start to see what I'm getting to. Okay, but let's say you actually wanted a rounded corner. Okay, I could type in something like 4 feet radius. All right, and now it says to select the first object and select the second object. Okay, you can see here it's giving you a preview of what that starts to look like. And now I have an absolute perfect 4-foot radius for that wall. Okay, maybe that's a design move that you make for your cabin. I don't know, that's completely up to you. But mainly I want you to understand what that tool actually does. Okay, so a similar tool that you also have that you can use is called Chamfer. Okay, what Chamfer does is it actually gives you an angled edge to your building. Okay, so let's say I typed in CH for chamfer, or CHA. All right, there it is right there. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. All right, and before I hit enter, I'm going to click on D. Down here at the very bottom, you see D for distance. Okay, so I'm going to type in D, and I'm going to say that I want a chamfer distance of 3 feet. All right. Oh, second chamfer distance. I'm also going to type in 3 feet. Okay, so what that means, let me break that down into its simplest form. What that means is, let's say this is our wall right here. Okay, right now they're connected at 90 degrees. So that first chamfer distance is going to be from here to wherever, and the second chamfer distance is going to be from here to wherever. Okay, and then the end result, let's say I type in 3 feet and 3 feet, is going to be something like this. Okay, so if you want a perfect 3-foot chamfer on both sides, or whatever dimensions you want, you can control that. So you could also type in something like 4 feet and 1 foot, and you would have something that kind of looks like that. Okay, so it'll take a little practice and a little kind of messing around with it a little bit to get the idea right. But again, CHA for chamfer distance, I'm going to say 3 feet and 3 feet. And I'm going to select the first line here, and then it says to select the second line, and you can see here that that gives you that particular result. Okay, so where you might use something like that is maybe like right here. Let's say I want a nice chamfered edge here. So this is, let's see, that's 5 feet. So I could say CHA, all right, chamfer. Actually, let's do it over here on this corner. Maybe I want like a nice glass window on this corner of my cabin. Okay, I could say D for distance, and I'm going to make my chamfer something nice and big, like 6 feet, and 6 feet for the second edge. And I could click this line, and I could click on this line, and there we have our chamfered corner. Okay, maybe I want the same thing on this side. What I just did is the repeat command. If you just hit the space bar after you do a command, it will repeat the last command that you did every single time. Okay, so I'm just hitting space bar, and it's going to go ahead and start the chamfer command a second time. That becomes in handy when you're doing things like copy, 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 copy. You don't have to type in CO, CO, CO every single time you start the command. So I just hit space bar, and that repeated the previous command. So I click on these 2 lines again, and then maybe this becomes my nice big great room and my kitchen or something like that. Okay, and then from here I can use my offset command, and that's going to be the shape of my cabin. Okay, everybody see that? So that's fillet and chamfer. So a couple other ones that we did not talk about last class was, let's see, we talked about copy, we talked about move. Let's also talk about rotate. Okay, so rotate is going to be this button right here in your modified tab. Okay, you can click on that. All right, you can click on that, and then it'll say to select your objects you want to rotate. Okay, maybe I select my building right here. Okay, those are the 2 objects that I want to rotate. I hit enter. Enter makes it go to the next phase of the command. It says to specify an endpoint. So where do I want that pivot point to be for my rotation. Okay, maybe I want it to be right here. All right, that's my base point. And then from there, I can start to rotate that building. So maybe I say something like, okay, I want my glass to actually face the river. I'm going to do something like that. Notice that as I turn it, it snaps it in 90-degree increments. Okay, so that makes it easy to rotate it 45, 90, etc., etc. But if I actually pull out my tangent line far enough, I can actually kind of have a nice, more free way of manipulating or spinning that object. Okay, so maybe I end up stopping like right there, and now my big old bay window that I have is going to be facing the river. Okay, so whether or not that ends up being that, I don't know. So I'm going to use the move command. I want it to be something like that, or maybe I say, I select it, I hit M for move, maybe I decide I want it to be up here. So you guys are starting to get the idea. So any questions about those particular commands? Okay, so let's see, let's talk about trim again really quickly. So for those of you that weren't here last class, this is a really good one to know. I'm just going to throw down some basic lines here inside this building. And let's talk about the trim command. Sorry, give me just a sec. Let me just put down some walls. My O snaps aren't correct. Let's type in perpendicular. Okay, so we'll get some walls in place. Okay, and I'm also just going to throw some random lines on here just so that you can get the idea of the command. Okay, so last class we talked about the trim command. Okay, so what I'm going to do to activate the trim command is I'm going to type in TR. Okay, TR for trim, that's the shortcut. I'm going to hit enter, and then it says to select all of the objects that you want to particularly trim. So the reason why I picked the trim tool is, let's just say that we have some walls that are inside of our space. We have some other lines that are currently intersecting those walls. We need to kind of clean up this little area. So my goal for what I'm about to do is to get rid of all of the lines between this triangle. Okay, so how would I do that quickly? Okay, I don't want you to have to, start doing this and moving lines like this and to where eventually you have a clear triangle. What you would want to use is the trim command. So TR for trim, enter. I'm going to select all of the objects or all of the lines that are associated with this general area. Okay, I always just select everything. Okay, I don't even try to contemplate what items belong where. I just select all of them. So I select all of the lines. When I'm done with that, I'm going to hit enter, and then it says select the objects that you want to trim. Notice that as I hover my cursor over the different lines that they start to go away. Okay, so these basically are now all broken up into individual line segments. Okay, and I can start to go through and get rid of all of the lines that I don't want until I now have this nice clear area. Okay, I could take it a step further. Maybe this is going to be like a cool triangular dining room table. Let's get rid of those. Let's get rid of those. Let's get rid of all those. And now I can just get rid of these remaining lines. And there's that space. Okay, everyone see how that works? That's the trim command. All right, I think there's one more. Okay, we've already talked about the ruler. We've already talked about checking square footage. Okay, so the main thing that you can kind of take away from today is just practice, practice, practice. It's gonna be a little sluggish at first. For those of you that haven't used AutoCAD, it will be frustrating, but just keep practicing. Don't try to race through it. So once you get to the point where you are done for today, your goal for the first portion of the cabin that'll be due on Monday will be to probably have an exterior footprint. Okay, so have an idea of what the actual cabin will look like. Okay, so you'll have an exterior footprint. You'll probably have some interior walls as well. You might start to have some doors and start to have some of the essentials of what that cabin might start to be. And then next class we'll go through and continue to refine it work on it. We'll we'll go through the design process. I'll probably say that doesn't work, that doesn't work. We'll change a few things, and we'll continue to refine that floor plan. Okay. So any questions about that? I think that should be good for now. Gave you about 5 or 6 new tools today. You guys learned about, we probably learned about 8 to 10 tools last class. That should be good enough to draw the floor plan. Okay, we'll continue to talk about more tools over the next couple classes, but this should be good to get that floor plan started. And if I think of other tools, I'm sure I will, I'll think of other stuff that will help you for today. Probably the second I hit stop recording is when I'll think of some more tools. But those are definitely the basics. Those are all the ones that were in my notes for.
Do you have like doors and during the AutoCAD class and you have like the
You have different blocks?
catalog that has like doors in it?
We don't. We're actually going to talk about blocks next class.
Okay.
For this class, I actually had everyone make doors last class
Okay.
as just the practice. So, and then you'll learn that actually here's another really good tool that let's talk about real quick. So I'm going to add a door to the front of my cabin here. And we'll say it's a nice double door. Okay. So I'm going to use my line tool. I want it to be centered. All right. So right now my mouse is not snapping to the center of that line. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in OSnap. So I can check midpoint. All right. And let's put a nice 6-foot double door in here. What we're going to end up getting to is the group command. I want to show you guys how to group a selection of objects, okay, so that once you create something like a door, you can easily just copy it as one item and then move it around to all of the other places. Okay, so let's make a 6-foot opening in our door. All right, so that's the center of my wall. I'm going to offset that line 3 feet. Okay, so that's going to be the opening, the opening in my wall. What would be the best command to use to get rid of these lines here in the middle? Trim. Yeah, right. So I'm going to do TR for trim. Select all of these lines. Okay, and I'm going to go through and get rid of these lines. Okay, and I don't need that one anymore. Actually, yeah, let's leave that one just for a second so I know where my door swing will turn out. So I'm going to go ahead and create a door. So I'm going to use my polyline to create the actual door. Notice that my mouse is automatically snapping. You'll see that it's snapping when you see that little green line. It's saying that it's at the same angle as this line right here. Okay? So now that I've already got it started, it's telling me the distance of where I am now. Right, I'm just going to type in 3 feet. Okay? And as I start to draw, one thing that I would love for it to snap to, actually let's just do this. Let's do an offset of 2 inches. That's going to be the thickness of our door. Okay, and then I'm going to use the line tool. Let's connect this like so, and that's going to be our actual door. If I select all of the lines together, I could type in join. All right, join will now make it a single object. It's now a continuous polyline. All right, sometimes it's easier to do multiple line segments and just join them all at the end. That's okay. And I can now take this, I can copy it over to the other side. All right, and I can now draw my door swing by going over to arc, and I could do start end direction. All right, and I'm going to start at the corner of my door, go down to where, where the center of the door will swing. Click on the second point, and all I'm going to do is specify a direction. Okay, so if I bring my mouse over to right here, notice that now I have a perfect arc. Okay, so I'm moving my mouse forward or upwards and down, and notice that it snaps into that perfect position. So that's the goal right there. I'm going to select this line here. Okay, if I accidentally have a little bit too much, I can get rid of that. Okay, get rid of that line, and there's our door swing. Okay, so the next step we're going to do to group this is I'm going to select those 2 objects. I can either group this as a double door or I can group it as a single door. I'm going to select both of those lines, and I'm just going to type in group. Okay, and now if I select it, it's going to be a single item. And let's say I want to copy this, CO, and maybe we have a door that's going to be on the other side of the space. Let's mirror it. Alright, I want it to snap. Let's do this. Let's mirror it over a line that we know is in the direction that we want. There we go. It says, do you want to erase the source object? Yes, I don't need the previous door. Alright, I'm going to make a door jamb, 4 inches. And now I can snap this to that jamb, copy this over, like so, use my trim tool, and start to place all of my doors in a much more fluid and easier fashion, okay? So that's the group tool. If you want to ungroup it, you can type in ungroup. You can also type in explode. So if I click on that and I type in EXPLODE, all right, explode, this will now be broken down into all of the individual line segments, okay? If I would have typed in ungroup, it would have actually ungrouped it into the single door and into the door swing. Explode will make it go into every single line segment that I could possibly create.
What's the difference between join and group?
Group will take multiple lines, so you could have like 8 different line segments, and it will group them into. They're all still individual line segments, but they're just grouped into a package. Okay. Whereas if you ungroup it, they're all still in the various polylines. Whereas explode will break it into all of the different line components.
Right, but what's the difference between join and group? Are they basically?
Oh,
the same?
join will actually make them all one continuous line, but you're not going to be able to join. If I have like a polyline like this, and I have another polyline, I could group those,
Okay.
but I couldn't join those because they're not a continuous line.
Okay.
Okay? So that's good for now. All right, that will definitely get you guys going. So use that, start your cabins. It's 7:30 right now. Take a 10-minute break, come back at 7:40, and we'll get started. My plan is to go around and talk to everyone today. Probably take about 45 minutes to an hour to kind of sketch out your idea. All right, don't dive right into AutoCAD right away. And I'll come around and talk to everyone about what they're kind of thinking. Okay? So take a break. We'll see you guys in 10 minutes.